To many, his photographs transcend mere imagery to reveal the depths of the human soul, the stark reality of human-induced tragedies, and the profound beauty of life. Born in 1944 in Brazil, Sebastiao Salgado initially pursued a career in economics, but his path took a dramatic turn due to the political turmoil of Brazil's military dictatorship. Exiled, his true calling emerged during his travels across Africa. There, Salgado's passion for photography ignited amidst diverse landscapes and cultures. Initially focusing on news assignments, his lens shifted towards more profound documentary-style storytelling, capturing the reality of Brazil's Mina Pelada goldmines, the heart-wrenching famine across Africa, and the genocide in Rwanda. Each photograph became a testament to human resilience and fragility. And since the 1990s, Salgado's journey took another transformative turn. Alongside his wife Lilia, he embarked on an ambitious environmental project. Together, they have dedicated themselves to transforming over 2,000 square kilometers of Brazil's Atlantic forest into a thriving nature reserve, the Instituto Terra. This initiative, driven by a mission of reforestation, conservation, and environmental education, mirrors the depth and empathy of Salgado's photographic work.
I'm Teresa in Aimores, Brazil. This is the Instituto Terra, a place created by famous photographer Sebastiao Salgado and his wife Lilia to reforest this part of the country. We will be talking to them about their history and how this successful project transformed their lives. Sebastiao Salgado, thank you so much for talking to Al Jazeera. My first question to you is, when we look at your pictures, it's like you capture the soul of people, the soul of nature. What is it that you used to have in your mind when you went out on an assignment?
Nothing special. I do only stories that I believe on them, that are real my stories, that I have a big pleasure to be there, that I go there because it's my option to be there. And from this moment, I'm in peace with myself. I have to be there. I have to meet the people of the space where I choose to be. And that become my home, that become my way of life.
You were born here in Aimores and studied economics. If you could explain to us, what was it that drove you to change from being an economist and trying to understand the economics of the world to actually taking pictures? How was that process?
Well, for me, it was a privilege. I have the opportunity first to go to the university. What is the university? Is a place where you have the resume of the society that you are part of it. The studies that I made were political economy. I did studies of national accounts, public finance, sociology, anthropology, geopolitics, and macroeconomy. All these deal in a society as a whole. And that gave me one vision of the society that I'm part of it. And when I start photography, it was just a continuation of all this. If you look today, the body of work that I did in photography is completely linked with the historical moment that I lived. And I just crossed inside with one vision. My vision, what was my heritage, was my father, my mother, the lights that are caught from these areas, from these hills, I grew up in this land. And the information that I had about the Brazilian society, with my studies, with my activism as a leftist student, and all this together drive me in a way with this language that is my photography. I write in images this moment that I live, and there is a coherence, because there is a coherence in the history. I was just one part of the history. What is photography? When you press the button, you do a cross-section, and this cross-section become a memory. And the addition of these thousands, millions of photography that I took, write a little bit of the history of the time that I lived, not more than this.
You left Brazil because of the dictatorship. How difficult was it to leave your country, being in exile?
It was the most difficult moment in our life. For me, it was terrible to imagine that I have no projection to come back to my country in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, because dictatorship was there, no possible to come back. And that was something very special for a young man, because I was just 25 years old. Lely was 22 years old, and was necessary to us to adapt ourselves in another way of life, in another climate. And that was not easy. The first 6 months I became sick, and I had a kind of depression, and but after, you adapt yourself. I believe that the real intelligence of the human being is the capacity of adaptation. We adapt in any kind, in any circumstance. And I saw this photographing. People arriving in a refugee camp, desperate. 1 month later was their home, their way of life, their neighbors, their difficulties become the variables that made their life. And as this, me also, I adapt myself. And finally, today, 50 years later, I'm yet a migrant. I live in France, I love France. But I go on all over this planet. I went to more than 130 different countries on the planet. And from this moment, it was much more easy to me to understand my problem, my questions, the problem of the migration. I did a huge story about migrants. In reality, it was my story that I was doing, that I was shooting.
Much of the work you did in Africa shocked the world. Your pictures are of human suffering, of people trying to survive. Which was the most difficult?
Most difficult for me was the genocide in Rwanda, because plus of the refugee, we have one terrible behavior of my species. I was deeply disappointed to be part of this species, the most violent of this species. I became sick after these stories. After that, I worked in the former Yugoslavia. It was as violent as Africa. And for me, it was difficult moments in my life. I was not there doing really the history of the war in Rwanda or the war in the former Yugoslavia. I was doing a big story about the displacement of population, about refugees, about migrants. But I leave all that, and it was a very difficult moment for me.
If you had to think of a particular moment, you were talking about the situation in Rwanda and the difficulties that also you had, to endure that and what you were seeing and the importance of showing that to the world. How did you recover from that? I mean, how do you go from that moment of profound sadness, but also to the commitment that this needs to be shown, that this is something that can change something maybe?
You see, it's very difficult for a photographer. Photographer works alone. You guys in television, film, you are a team. You discuss between you, you ponderate the things, and we are alone. Photography is alone. And I had moments that I put my cameras in the ground and sit to cry to the so difficult things. And the moments that was necessary to take the decision to do the pictures or not to do the pictures. You see, we are in front of an ethical line, a very thick ethical line, and each one has one, and you must stay strictly inside this line. And many pictures I do not make, and a lot I make it. And I make it that for me, same a small kid just born was necessary to see in order that together we don't allow more these things that I saw happen because it was too much, too much, too much.
That pivotal moment led Sebastiao and Lelia to a period of introspection and a growing concern for the state of the natural world, recognizing the urgent need to educate others about the importance of caring for the environment. And there was no better place to start than at home in Brazil's forests. Here, in the Rio Doce Valley, on the very land that Sebastiao's father had once deforested, they laid the foundation for the Instituto Terra, turning a page from documenting the world's challenges to actively participating in its healing.
And a bit of that is seen in the change in your books. You went from the books of war, of famine, of suffering, to Genesis, to the possibility of saving the planet. And much of it is in a project such as this one, as the one where we are here today.
It's Instituto Terra that will drive me directed to Genesis, to the picture of environment. Because when I was working in Africa, I came back sick from that, completely sick. My body was dying. A doctor friend of us told me to take a rest at least 3-4 months because I saw so many deaths, so many despair in Africa that was necessary to take a rest. It was the moment that my parents became old, gave this land for Lelia and myself, with my sister, because I have 7 sisters, I'm the only man in my family. And we started to plant a forest by Lelia's idea, Lelia that had the idea to replant the forest.
Sebastiao's life and work have been deeply enriched by his partnership with his wife Lelia. Meeting in their school days, they bonded over shared passions for activism and art.
A gente vinha aqui sempre no Natal. E o Natal é a época da chuva, das chuvas, a estação das chuvas. Então isso aqui, esses morros todos, que eram morros sem nada, completamente pelados, como a gente diz aqui em português, e as terras, a chuva vinha, trazia toda a terra para baixo, sabe, fazendo sucos na terra, assim, uma coisa muito triste, entende? Então foi aí, nesse dia que a gente estava, que tinha uma chuva muito grande, nós estávamos aqui, olhando assim, e de repente, eu pensei, mas o que a gente vai fazer com isso? Não tem o que fazer aqui. E aí eu pensei, fechei meus olhos assim, vi tudo verdinho. Aí pensei, vamos plantar uma floresta. Vamos plantar uma floresta, porque aqui tinha floresta antes, para a gente fazer a plantação. Foi assim que a gente começou. Foi, agora, muitos problemas, muitas dificuldades, porque a primeira plantação, a gente perdeu 60% das plantas, porque a gente não sabia fazer. A gente fazia um buraco estreito, pouco profundo, que botava a planta e não tinha terra úmida em volta para a planta segurar. E se não chovesse logo depois, porque a chuva você não marca encontro com a chuva, né? É a época da chuva, mas ela pode chover hoje, chover 3 dias, depois passar 3 semanas sem chover. E foi o que aconteceu. Nós perdemos 60%. Foi assim, muito triste.
Despite facing numerous challenges over the past 25 years, Instituto Terra has emerged as a beacon of environmental triumph with 2,500 square kilometers of reforested land, planting over 3 million trees, not only revitalizing the landscape, but bringing back native species, restoring the region's natural biodiversity. Today, Juliano Salgado, carrying forward his parents' legacy, stands at the helm of this visionary project, seeking to expand upon his parents' dream.
Now, if you walk here, you see those 3 million trees, they're thriving. The quantity of animals that came back, it's amazing. It's crazy because we've proven that we can bring life back to places that are completely dead. And this gives us a lot of hope. All this region is having its water going away. We have a situation now where it only rains half of what it used to rain only 15 years ago. The underneath water is disappearing as well because of the cattle farming. The cattle, what it does is that people that have cattle, they cut all of the trees. The cattle walks over the land, compact it, and make it so hard and so stiff that the water, it doesn't penetrate the soil anymore. It's a catastrophe. And this is creating a situation of complete aridification of the region. So when we bring water back, the way we do it is that we plant trees, about 500 trees around the water sources where there used to be a water source. We create those little pools in key places where the water will accumulate and penetrate the table water, the underneath water. And this has the fantastic result of actually de facto bringing water back. We restored about 2,000 water sources in the last 15 years, and we're going to restore 4,500 water sources in the next 5 years. You know, in a country like Brazil, where people are used to deforest to create value, to put their cattle, to put their soja, or whatever it is they want to grow, that has been built over the forest, there's a mentality and a belief that in order to create value, you have to cut off all the trees. And so at first it was very, very difficult to even, start chatting with them. But then we realized that when we bring water back and when we start changing their life back with those regenerative techniques, their mentality change, and suddenly they start to be open to these new ways and these new techniques. And the magic and the power of what we're doing here is that what we're doing is not only going to bring water back, it's not only going to bring the rain back, it's going to increase massively the richness of this region.
Sebastiao Salgado's photography now extends beyond mere documentation, shifting his focus towards the imperative of conservation, showcasing the breathtaking beauty and critical importance of our natural world. His lens also brings into focus the unique perspectives of indigenous communities, portraying their lives and cultures.
If you had to think, how do you see the world today?
You see, we are a very complicated species. The way that we share the health in the planet is terrible. You see all these people crossing these oceans, taking incredible risks, because they have no opportunity. When the French gone from Africa, when the British gone from Africa, how many doctors they leave back? How many engineers they leave back? Peanuts, nothing. They just stolen there and leave people living their model that they have in Europe, but not give to them the conditions of life. And these people are looking for their survival, just to survive. And today, if you don't protect the environment, the nature, we become very complicated. We don't evolve in nothing. We are a species in total danger of disappear. We are probably the most endangered species in the planet is the human species. The humanity has a model of life that's completely based in the carbon print. And the way is to get how can we capture this carbon? And the only way to capture is to plant the trees. But the biggest problem It's not carbon, it's not water, it's the loss of biodiversity. We are losing biodiversity in a very high speed. Germany, in these last 40 years, lose 70% of their biodiversity. It will be complicated to survive out of the biodiversity. And I believe that that is the solution. We create here a pilot that can be a model, and we can rehabilitate the planet. You imagine, I believe that in these 25 years, we probably spend here about $25 million to build all this. It's a lot of money, but we are preparing now the new planes to fight against the Russians. That is the F-16, American F-16 plane. One completely equipped F-16 plane is about $150 million per plane. Just one plane was possible to make 6 times what we did here. We have resources. We have enough resources. It's a problem to us today to do a definition to where go these resources, to make a better planet where we can our species survive on it, or we can destroy everything by war, by the emission of carbon, by the lack of water, by the destruction of biodiversity. It's an option. If you do a proper option, we can survive. The contrary will be very difficult.
When you think of people today, with these little cameras, everyone is taking pictures, social media, compared with the work you used to do, spending months without being in touch with the Lelia or the people you love the most. What has changed? Do you think it's for the better or for the worse?
It's nothing. Change nothing. Because this is not photography. Photography is the memory. Photography, a photographer that works, he tells a story. And this story is representing this cross-section materialized in a picture. It's memory of a society, it's the mirror of the society. When you use this social media, these telephones, it's a new language based in the transmission of the image. But it's just a language. It's not a reference. It's nothing. The day that you lose your telephone, the day that you change your telephone, you lose half of the image and you don't care about. Look, when you were a kid, your father or mother made your pictures with you with a camera, bring it to corner of your street. The small laboratory developed the picture, gave the prints to your father or mother. He made a small album. This small album is your story. It's materialized there, it's picture. You break the corner, you a little bit, but you look this always. And now, with this new language, the babies have no more story. Because you just made a joke with this, you send to grandma, to send to the friend, and you lose it, you don't care. And the number of photographers that exist on the planet today is the same that existed 30 years ago, 60 years ago. These photographers, they tell the history of the planet. They are the memory. The others is just a communication language via image. That's it.